Hi everyone, welcome to UGC. I'm Megha and welcome to UGC NET with Megha. So in this video we are going to cover the topic barriers to communication from the unit communication. So what exactly do we understand by barriers to communication? Any interruption in the process of communication is known as barrier. So that means any problem that arises during the entire process of communication, any sort of disruption in the process of communication is known as the barrier for communication. There are various types of barriers to the communication. We are going to look at the few barriers to communication. The first is the physical barrier. So these are the barriers which are related to physical attributes of communication, like the age of the people communicating, or the gender of the people communicating, or maybe the time at which they are communicating. For example, if the communication is going on between a father who is nearly 50 years old and a son who is 18 years old. So now the son, being a teenager, would perceive things differently and he might not have the same opinion as his father. So the age gap between the father and the son might result in an argument instead of a peaceful communication. So such an age gap can be a barrier to communication, and this is known as a physical barrier. The next type of barrier is the semantic barrier. So semantic barriers are those barriers which arise due to lack of common language or poor vocabulary, etc. For example, if you have a new colleague in your office who is from South India and he does not understand Hindi and is not very good at English as well, and on the other side you are also not very good at the language that he speaks, that is his native language, you don't understand it. So now this language becomes the barrier, as you don't have a common language for your communication. So the communication between you two would not be as effective as it should be, and thus such type of barriers are known as semantic barriers. The next set of barrier is known as physiological barriers. So these are the barriers which are because of certain physical disability attached to the sender or the receiver. For example, if the receiver is dumb and deaf, that is, he cannot hear and speak. So if the sender uses the medium of communication, that is the audio mode of communication, then the communication process would fail, as it would be useless for the receiver who cannot hear and speak to use a audio node. So these types of barriers are known as physiological barriers. Next set of barrier is the psychological barriers. So the psychological barriers are those barriers which are related to our mind. Basically, how we see things, what are our opinion on a particular situation, or how we perceive things. We all are different in every single aspect, so we perceive things differently, and we all have different set of opinions on the same situation. So that can also act as a barrier in communication if you both do not agree on the same point. For example, if there are two people in a room and they see a glass which is half filled and half empty, so one person might say that the glass is half filled, whereas the other person may see the negative aspect, that is the glass is half empty. So these type of barriers are known as psychological barriers. The next barrier is the receiver-oriented barrier. So these are the barriers which are at the receiver's end, that is the barriers which exist at the receiver's end are known as receiver-oriented barrier. For example, the receiver is in a crowded place and he knows very well that whatever would be communicated to him, he might not be able to hear and understand it clearly, but still he answers the call. So such type of barriers are receiver-oriented barrier. The next barrier is the sender-oriented barrier. So these are the barriers which are at the sender's end, that is these barriers are attached to the sender. Just like the receiver, if the sender is in a crowded place, in spite of knowing that the noise of the crowded area might disrupt his message, still he communicates the same, then such type of barriers are known as sender-oriented barriers. And the last one is the channel-oriented barriers, that is the mode of communication that you have selected is incorrect. Then the disruption that would arise in the entire process of communication would be known as the channel-oriented barrier. For example, you are standing from the receiver nearly 50 meters apart and still you choose to shout and communicate your message instead of calling the receiver. So then such kind of a barrier or interruption would be known as channel-oriented barrier. So that was all for this video. Thank you for watching this video and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. If you want me to cover a particular topic, you can leave your comments in the comment section. And for more details on our online course, please visit our website www.ugcnetwithmegha.com and the link for the website is given in the description below. And for regular updates, follow us on our social media handles.